Welcome, degenerates, to Place Your Bets. I'm Tyler James. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. We cover Notre Dame football, recruiting, and more for InsideNDSports.com on the Rivals Network. Our bye-week hiatus is over, and we're back with some more prop bets for you. Much like Notre Dame, we all fared pretty well in the North Carolina game, and that's because we all went 4-1. And just so happened that we all ended up on the same sides of every prop bet. So we were all correct on Notre Dame's total.
What was the one we missed?
Give me a second, and I'll tell you, Eric.
Okay.
We were all correct on the Notre Dame's total offense, the time of possession, total sacks, and Michael Mayer receptions, and we were all wrong on Drake May's passing total. We took the under, and he was able to hit the over.
Thanks to a really weird pass play at the end.
Yeah, thanks to some blown coverage there on a very long fourth down play. So that means there were no changes to the season standings, though our records are starting to look a little bit prettier now after that. Eric, do you think, I believe you're 5-0. If my math serves me correct, you're a 5-0 a week away from getting above 500. Do you think that this is the week you can pull that off?
No.
All right. I appreciate that lack of confidence.
Yeah. These are hard ones.
All right. Well, that's good. Yeah, I did a bad job last time because if all three parties ended up with the same answers for all five of them, that means that the casino did a bad job, and I am also the casino in this. Although I have nothing to pay out, so I will be in the land of many casinos this week in Las Vegas. So let's test our luck before Notre Dame heads out there as well to play against BYU. First one I have for us, Eric, is over under 194.5 rushing yards for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I went ahead and took the over, and the reason why is, BYU has kind of been up and down with the teams that they've played in terms of rushing yards. Oregon ran all over them. Utah State really did a good job of running on them. They were just over 200 yards. I think Notre Dame is going to be around that number. So going over 194.5, there's some risk there. But I think that's going to be Notre Dame's game plan, is to run from the start and then, build their passing game off of that. So over for me.
Yeah, Notre Dame's only gone over that total once, and that was obviously the last game against North Carolina when they were way over that total with 287 rushing yards. And for BYU, they've allowed that many yards twice, with Oregon getting to 212, and then Utah State also surpassing that mark, as you mentioned. So I do think that Notre Dame should have success running the ball, so I'm going to go over here and expect to see any number of combinations of Audric Estime, Chris Tyree, and Logan Diggs eating up some rushing yards for Notre Dame's offense. Next one I have for us, over under 279.5 passing yards for BYU quarterback Jaren Hall.
Well, he's been around there or more in every game. I think his lowest is 261, and he's been above 300. This one's tough. I think he's going to be right around that number. I don't think BYU is going to run the ball well. I think it's going to be in his hands. But I'm going to go slightly under, so this is probably the one that I get wrong. But I think Notre Dame will hold him down to maybe around 250, 260. I think it's going to be around there because that's their bread and butter, is him, finding weaknesses in the defense. It's not their running game.
Yeah, I'm going under. I just think what Notre Dame was able to do against C.J. Stroud and Drake May plays in Notre Dame's favor, even though Drake May did hit 301 yards against Notre Dame. That came with some late touchdowns. One really late that was particularly a bad play on Notre Dame's defensive part.
21.
That wasn't that padded the stats and wasn't necessarily indicative of the defensive effort that Notre Dame's defense played against Drake May. So the fact that they limited him to that, C.J. Stroud was nowhere close to 279 yards. Now, granted, Ohio State sort of took over the game at the very end running the football, but still, I still think Notre Dame's pass defense is really good, and I think they'll be able to hold Jaren Hall under 279.5 passing yards. Next one I have, this one's for Notre Dame's quarterback. Will Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pyne throw an interception.
Well, BYU's got 4 this year, and 2 of them came in the Utah State game against their backup quarterback. Although I thought that kid did a really good job. I watched that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think BYU has the defensive front to pressure Notre Dame much. So if Drew Pyne threw an interception, it would probably be on a tip pass or something. So I'm going to say no, he will not throw an interception against BYU.
All right. I'm going to go with yes. So he hasn't thrown one since coming in late in the Marshall game. Despite the slow start against Cal, he did not throw an interception in that game and has been able to stay clean so far since then. But I don't know. I just think that there's going to be some tight windows that he's going to be asked to throw into. And I think BYU is going to be able to do a good job of making it difficult for him. And also, I think, like you mentioned, the batted throws. I mean, Drew Pyne's probably going to have a couple passes that are batted down the line of scrimmage, and those don't always go straight into the ground. So I think that could increase the chances. So I'm going to predict yes that Drew Pyne will throw an interception against BYU. Next one we have is over under 6.5 tackles for Notre Dame linebacker Jack Kiser.
Well, he's going to get more opportunities because J.D. Bertrand has to sit out the first half, and he had a bunch of them in the first half last game. What do you have, 9 tackles for the game?
Yep.
And most of those came in the first half. But I think this is going to be a little bit different game. BYU's not going to run as much. They're going to throw more, and I don't think they're going to throw shorter passes that Kiser would have to defend. And I think Maris Leafau among the linebackers is going to end up being the leading tackler. So I'm going to go under on Kiser's tackle total, and I'll probably be wrong. He's the leading tackler on the team right now. See, yeah. I'm already predicting bad things for me.
You're hedging your bets by predicting one thing and then also predicting that you'll be wrong. So, so either way, you're right. I'm going to go over. He's averaging just over 6 per game. Like you mentioned, he had 9 against UNC. He had 9 against Cal. I just think that he is all over the place. I mean, even if they're not going against a team that's running the ball a lot, especially with J.D. Bertrand out, he's going to be asked to play some inside linebacker, I believe. And so that'll allow him to still have opportunities to make tackles and not necessarily be pulled off the field in nickel situations. So I think that he will hit the over. I don't know that he's going to get to like 10 tackles or anything like that, but I do think he'll be able to get to the 7 tackle total. Next one, over under 69.5 receiving yards for Notre Dame wide receiver Lorenzo Styles.
Well, he's topped out at 69 a couple times, so he hasn't been to 69.5 yet. The one thing that's interesting about BYU is they haven't allowed a lot of passing yards in any game. They've done a pretty good job of holding the passing yardage down. And when I think about what the BYU defensive coordinator would do, who would he try to stop? I mean, they've got to try to stop Michael Mayer. And I think that's the harder matchup for BYU too. I don't think they have an obvious person that can cover him. And so I think he's going to get a lot of attention. Usually if they do special things to, funnel resources toward Michael Mayer, Lorenzo could be the beneficiary. But I think things will be kind of spread out among the receivers once you get past Michael Mayer. I just don't think there's an obvious solution on BYU's team for him. So under for Lorenzo.
So okay, I want to make sure that that's what I thought you were saying, but I want to make sure I get that right. I'm going under as well.
I thought you were just
like
stalling.
You mentioned that. Yeah, I'm just still trying to think of answers, doing research. I'm going to go under as well. Like you said, that would be a season high for Lorenzo Styles. Only 3 receivers have surpassed that total against BYU this season. Oregon's Troy Franklin, Utah State's Brian Cobbs, and South Florida's Xavier Weaver. So, I think Lorenzo Styles is certainly capable of a long reception that makes us regret our predictions here pretty quickly. But I'm just not quite ready to go there yet because I don't know that Notre Dame's going to rely on passing the ball a ton. And I'm not confident enough yet that he's going to be able to hit that mark to go ahead with the over here. But if I'm going to hedge my bet like you have for the previous ones, this is probably the one that I have the least confidence in. All right. Lastly, what is your final score prediction for Notre Dame BYU?
I'm going to go Notre Dame 27, BYU 21. And part of the reason I picked 21 for BYU is because their field goal kicker has been struggling. He's 5 of 10 on the year. He's 3 of 8 from 30 to 39 yards. He did have a 45-yarder in the Utah State game, but I think he missed a couple in that game. So 27-21 for me.
All right, I'm going Notre Dame 31, BYU 27. And no, not 2 field goals. I'm predicting a missed extra point by that struggling field goal kicker. So I think it's going to be a close game. I expect it to be pretty close throughout. But I do think Notre Dame can have success running the football, can score some points. And I'm not sure BYU has enough to sort of outscore Notre Dame in this game. So I think it'll be a little bit of a continuation of the success Notre Dame had against UNC, but I think BYU's defense is much better than UNC's, so it won't be an explosive output necessarily for the Irish.
And I wanted to say that I'm not winking at you. I had a contact lens issue.
Well, I wasn't worried about it, and you can wink at me all you want.
Okay.
That's it for Place Your Bets this week. Comment your score predictions below for Saturday's game. If you're an Inside ND Sports subscriber, make sure you log your prediction on the Insider Lounge. And if you want more video content from us, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back on YouTube Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Live to recap the BYU game. And we'll be back here later in the week for the Stanford edition of Place Your Bets.